Hello, everyone, and welcome to 9/11/2. You thought that 9/11 was bad? What if it happened again, but worse? Invincible season 3, episode 7. That's what this is. And it's the invasion of the Marks. Um, I'm actually. This was actually like a fascinating episode for me because I I have read the comics, but it was so long ago that I feel like I remember the comics decently well, like the way the story starts, and I definitely remember the way that the comic books end. But there's, I guess, like everything in between is just kind of like a mush for me because it's like I was genuinely surprised by things that happened in this episode where I was like, oh, did that happen? Oh yeah, I think that did happen, and then like, oh, that's happening now. Like that's like now is that when that happens? Oh shit, yeah, I think that was when that happened. Like, I'll get into it as we go through it, but it was a really good viewing experience for me because I like being surprised by things, and it was overall just like a really solid episode. Like, is it kind of a repeat of Omni Man in a sense? Yeah, but I think it also kind of shows Mark's growth in a sense and everything that he's grappling with now as opposed to then. So I liked it overall. Very good stuff. Let's get into it. We get the reveal that Angstrom Levy's death was exaggerated to say the least. They show his mushed up face. I remember back in season 2, people were going like, Robert Kirkman, you coward, you're not showing the messed up face. But I actually like that they saved it for this episode because it's just like a good way to introduce this episode and have like an impactful imagery, because we didn't necessarily need impactful imagery at the end of the season 2 finale because we had Mark's performance, but having that impactful imagery to introduce Angstrom Levy and his little thing in the beginning of this episode, I don't know, I thought it makes sense. He gets repaired by these like this interdimensional technicians, or I guess no, it's just technicians from another dimension. I don't know. I'm kind of fascinated by these guys. Like, are they highly advanced humans? Are they aliens? Are they robots? Like sentient robots? I don't know. Like, I like them. Well, I don't like them. They're probably bad guys, but I'm interested in them. um, yeah, and then we find out that Angstrom Levy's new plan is to go to a bunch of Invincible variants and convince them to invade the Good Mark's dimension. And shout out to Steven Yeun. His performance in this episode is fantastic. Like, all of the different voices and inflections for all the different marks and all the different personalities. Like, he's a great actor, obviously, but this was just like very impressive. And yeah, when a lot of people talk about Invincible, I feel like the thing that gets emphasized is that, and I think I agree with this, is that, he's obviously not called Invincible because he's physically invincible. He's constantly getting his ass kicked, but it's more so like his willpower and whatever. This episode, I thought it was interesting because it like really pushes him to the limit of that. Like, he's already feeling guilty or in the beginning over like Powerplex and all of that shit, and then he has to deal with a full scale, essentially like a preview of what a Viltrumite invasion would look like. I mean, it's a bunch of hymns, so it essentially was a Viltrumite invasion. Then we obviously get to the end of it, which is setting up the next episode. I guess we'll get to that in a bit, but yeah. I like the themes that are being explored and whatnot. I thought this episode was cool because it introduces into the show like a bunch of characters from Image Comics. Like, we have Wolf Guy. I don't remember his name. I purposefully didn't look it up because I thought it would be funny. This guy, again, don't remember his name. I didn't look it up because I thought it would be thought it would be funnier that way. And then these guys as well. I remember Wolf Guy, I think he's literally just like a guy who turns into a werewolf when he gets angry or something. This guy, he's kind of like Image Comics' version of Blue Beetle. I think he's like a teenager that gets that suit of armor, I think, and I think it's alien technology. Or maybe he's more of an Iron Man person where he builds his suit. I don't remember. So these guys are interesting because they work for a company, if I remember correctly, and it's like literally a company that hires superheroes, kind of like The Boys, except I don't think it was ever as dark as The Boys. But yeah, like there is like the Invincible universe in the comic books. They are like, it's not just Invincible. There are other runs of comic books, so it's like Marvel and like DC. But I always thought it was interesting that the other characters that have their own comics have never really shown up in the show. I always wondered if that was like a rights issue or something, but I guess not. They just never felt like putting them in. Yeah, interesting stuff. I knew that one of them was dying. Again, I didn't remember that. I actually didn't remember from the comics that Rex ever died. That's just not like a memory. That wasn't a core memory that I had. But based off of this interaction at the beginning, I was like, oh yeah, one of them's dying. And it was Rex, and it was like a really powerful moment, actually. Like him sacrificing himself, kind of like Gambit in X-Men 97, actually. That's what it more or less reminded me of. Yeah, really impactful. They did a really good job of making you like Rex in, starting from the last season, I guess. And yeah, the actual genuinely impactful moment. I like that we get what I assume is the conclusion of the sexist mummy bit. I mean, I guess we might see this mummy again in the future, but it seems like the girls escaped, so that's nice, I guess. But yeah, really funny bit. I like that it literally just appears randomly. I've watched reactions to this episode, and it is very funny that like a lot of them genuinely just like don't even remember it. So it's just like a random thing with this mummy. I don't know. I appreciate it. I like that Paul is just not built for this lifestyle. Like Debbie, honestly, I think the show is called Invincible because of Debbie's willpower to like live this life. And Paul is just like, I'll say, I don't remember if Paul breaks up with her or not, or if he leaves the relationship, or what exactly happens. But just as essentially an organic viewer, this man is not built for this lifestyle. I don't think this relationship is gonna. I don't think he's gonna stick around personally. This is one of those interesting things where I feel like a lot of people they'll like judge characters and call them bad characters because a character does a thing that you wouldn't do. So it's like, I kind of get the instinct to be like, Mark staying with Eve and not helping and whatnot is like bad writing. But I also think it can understand that like Mark really is being pushed to his limit, and it's like seeing Eve get her leg snapped. It's like, is that a like a reasonable reaction, and is that like a naturalistic reaction of what Mark would do in that situation, where he's just like, I don't know. I'm honestly not sure if that's like a good decision for the character or not, but it happened anyways. What can we do about it except complain about it on the internet? You know what I mean? I really love the fight between him and Angstrom Levy. It's a really good showcase of how, like, listen, at the end of the day, I do not want to excuse the animation of the show because Amazon, you have, I think, trillions of dollars at this point. You could maybe give the Invincible team some of like 0.01% or 0.01% of that money to have better animation. But I still compliment the show for like they utilize everything else so well to enhance like the fights and stuff like that, where let's like, yes, the animation is kind of shitty, but everything from like the framing and the choreography, in quotes because it's an animated thing, to the sound design, to the music, like it all just enhances it. And so the fight with Angstrom Levy was really cool. Seeing Mark learn from his mistakes and just locking in, as the kids say, was very cool. I thought it was interesting that Mark was absolutely ready to kill Angstrom Levy when not Omni Man, but when Oliver was like doing like, go Mark, kill him so he can't kill again. I thought that it was gonna be a thing of like Mark deciding not to kill him in order to set a good example for Oliver, but he was ready to do it. And then obviously Angstrom Levy narrowly escapes. So hey, listen, Mark, your conscience should be clear because you actually didn't kill anybody. So obviously he's not gonna do that because he's Mark and he has to be constantly feeling guilty. But yeah, an interesting note is to just say that like Angstrom Levy technically won, because I can't remember exactly how it plays out in the comics, but I mean, yeah, anytime Invincible's name is brought up, it's like they're gonna remember this day, and it's like, is it Invincible's fault? Like, did he like what? Like he or well, no, because right, like he didn't want this to happen, but it happened anyways, and it did happen because of his interaction with Angstrom Levy, which then led Angstrom Levy to do what he did. But it's like, to most people, it's like, I don't know that that's like the logical explanation of it all. I don't know if that's really going to matter, because when you think of Invincible, it's not going to be a hopeful thing. It's not going to be a happy thing. It's going to be 9/11 too. Yeah, just like an interesting thing to note. Mark ends up meeting Eve's dad. It's like, man, he just sucks, doesn't he? Like, this character is just like unrelentingly awful, low key worse than Omni-Man. That's my state. That's my stance. It's my hot take. And then yeah, it ends with this tease of Conquest. Yeah, this is just like another one of those things where I was like, oh shit, does this happen now? Is now when this happens? Was it the same thing in the comics? I was like, oh yeah, I think it is actually. So, because obviously there are a lot of people that watch the show that haven't read the comics. I'm not going to necessarily talk too much about this character, but all I will say is that there's a reason why this is the season finale. Yeah, it's interesting. Just based on my memory, I was thinking that the beginning of the season where Mark is confronting Cecil, I always thought that would end up being the season finale of a show. Or the season finale of a season. It is interesting that it ended up being the opening of a season. But yeah, all I'm going to say is that the season finale is probably not going to disappoint. But yeah, overall, great episode. Definitely one of those, it's going to be one of those, like Hallmark episodes that people think about. And yeah, Invincible's a good show. So let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video.